Hello and welcome back to lesson 2 of our Toefl beginner online English classes. My name is Mr. Nicky. I hope you found the first week's class accessible and useful and beneficial last week. We're going to be working from a different textbook today, which is the Developing Skills for Reading textbook. And we're looking at chapter 1, which is pages 20 to 32. If you have that book at home, that's excellent. We're going to work through chapter 1. You can write down your answers in there. If you don't have your book at home, please make sure you have a notebook with you. I will put any necessary screenshots of text onto the PowerPoint and you'll be able to see them. So you will be able to complete everything just as successfully. Other than that, I might ask you to pause the video again in certain places, either to think about an answer or to practice some reading or maybe just some pronunciation. Again, the more of this you do, the more beneficial these classes will be to you, so please make the most of them. All right, objectives for today. 3 things. We need to be able to understand what is required in TOEFL reading exams, understand any necessary TOEFL vocabulary, and recognize, extract, and use significant details in a variety of texts. Last week, we read about the anxiety text. There were certain words in there, for example, id, ego, superego, that maybe you've not come across before, or maybe you didn't know the definition of. Again, it's not always important to know the exact definition. We just need to be able to recognize that they are important, and we can then mimic the sentence structures for them if we need to in any of our answers. And that's a skill that we'll also have a little practice of today. Okay. So if you turn to page 20 in your textbooks, if you have them, you'll see at the top of the page, there is a chapter outline. We have the introduction and chapter 1, which are the 2 parts that we're going to be doing today. In chapter 1, there are 5 short reading passages that we're going to be working through and answering questions about. So in the actual TOEFL test, you'll read 3 to 5 passages on varying topics. After each passage, you will answer 12 to 14 questions that test your ability to understand vocabulary, sentence structure, and factual information, as well as implied information and the writer's intention. Now, importantly, when you're in the exam, you will not be permitted to see the questions until after you have read the passage. So what I would ask you to do today, please, is cover up the question section while we're reading to begin with on any page. Use a notebook or a piece of paper. And then afterwards, after we've read the passage, you can reveal that and try and do the answer there. Okay. Where are we? While answering questions, you will be permitted to look back at the reading. You do not need any previous knowledge on the topic in order to answer the questions correctly. Okay, so the 5 things there that we are tested on. Vocabulary. Again, a lot of this is just down to recognizing those important words, like we spoke about with the anxiety and id, ego, and superego. Other things that we need to understand, different sentence structures, recognizing tenses, how this changes the purpose or the meaning of what's written, and whether it's a formal or informal text. Third and fourth, recognizing factual information where statistics, figures, research data is used, and also recognizing implied information. This is information which is kind of hinted or suggested, but not directly stated or spoken. For example, sometimes I might see students in class checking their watches or yawning. They're not telling me that they're bored, but it's implied. I can tell from the way that they're acting, or I can tell from the rest of the information that I'm able to gather that that's probably the case, unfortunately. Okay, so that's implied. And last one, the writer's intention. Okay, so what is the writer intending to do here? Is it a piece of text to give information or an overview of a topic? Is it an argument asking for change? There can be all sorts of different intentions in the writing. So there's 3 main passage types. This follows on from the writer's intent slightly. Exposition, argumentation, and a narrative. Now these all come from verbs. We had the verb to expose or to show, verb to argue, or the verb to narrate. In an exposition, information and an explanation of a topic is given, usually a bit of a broad outline on a big topic usually. An argumentation is usually a point of view about a topic, an opinion piece. It says and supports with evidence. Sometimes evidence is used. Sometimes in opinion pieces, evidence is not always used. And lastly, narrative, an account of a person's life or a historical event, a biography, if you will. Now this question type section, I'm not going to go through this whole thing with you. If you want to look at that and read it, please pause the video and do so, or screenshot it if you want, save it for a later date. It's not super important for today because we don't have full 12 questions with every text, but it would be a useful thing to save if you don't have a copy of the book and look at before an actual speaking exam or before an actual Toefl exam, sorry. Okay, so we're going to move on to our actual reading sections now. Okay, page 28 if you've got the books. It's Skill A01. The title of the passage is Reading Speed. Now, much like we did with the passage last week, what I'd like you to do, please, is read through this on your own. Highlight any words that you don't understand or that you're not unsure how to pronounce. When you restart the video in a moment, I will read through the entire thing and you can listen for the pronunciation of those words in particular. Okay, and you can pause and rewind if necessary to practice. Before we pause the video, however, 5 vocab words. One that you should recognize from maths, divide, which means to break a larger number into smaller ones. The second word that we've got there is time. This is time as the verb, not time as the noun. So when we time something, as with a stopwatch, we press start, we see how long it takes, we press stop, and we know how long it took. That's to time. Third word there, we've got accurately, which means without error or without a mistake. Word number 4, information. I think we all know what that is. And number 5, practice, to keep trying or to do something as a habit or custom. To try and get better at something, we have to practice. So those are your words. Please pause the video now and read through yourself, and I'll read it for you in a moment. Okay, should have read through that yourself. I'll now go through it and you can listen to pronunciation. So, students can find out how fast they read by a simple method. First, they should count all of the words on a page of a book. Then, they read the page as they time themselves. After finishing reading, they should divide the number of words read by the number of minutes spent reading. That will give their reading speed in words per minute. It is important that students read accurately, even while timing themselves. If they read too quickly, they might not understand the information. If that happens, their reading will be of no use. Students must practice reading at a speed at which they can still understand. Okay, so there's our first passage. If you would like to now uncover the questions at the bottom of the page, you will see that it looks like this. Again, if you don't have your books at home, feel free to pause the video or rewind a little bit to go back and check information with the previous slide. We've got 3 questions there. Please take a moment to think about them and give your answers. Once you've completed those 4 questions, please restart the video and I will give you the answers. Thank you. Okay, so question 1 said, according to the passage, what is the first step in determining your reading speed? The correct answer there is letter C, counting the number of words on a page. Question number 2 says, Which of the following is closest in meaning to the word used in the passage? 4 options: bad, value, useful, and work. And the correct answer is B, value. Question 3. According to the passage, which is true of reading quickly? A, it is always helpful in becoming a better student. B, it is not useful if you can't understand the information. C, you should practice reading faster every day. And D, there is no limit on how fast a student can read. Correct answer there. B, it's not useful to be able to read fast if you can't understand the information. Last one, number 4. We've got a kind of mathematics style equation. What divided by what equals reading speed? We should have had above the line there words and below the line minutes. Okay, give yourself a score out of 4 for that, and we will move on to number 2. Okay, number 2 is on the topic of fainting. Again, please cover the questions up if you are doing this in your book to begin with. Again, read through the text, highlight or underline any of the words that you don't understand or that you are unsure of pronunciation. And when I read it, you can listen out for them again. Vocab words that we might need to know. Adequate, enough for purpose or sufficient to meet a need. At the moment, particularly in Western countries, there is not adequate toilet paper. There is not enough to go around. People are going crazy trying to buy their toilet rolls. It's not an adequate supply. Equally here, we had the big problem with face masks for a few weeks, didn't we, where you couldn't buy them. There was not an adequate amount of face masks. Word number 2, circulate, to go round. Importantly, with circulate, it comes back to where it begins. Okay, so it's a circular motion. It may not be in a circular shape, but it starts and continues through one place. So we have blood in a body, comes from the heart, finishes back in the heart, and keeps circling around. Okay. Number 3, the manner, the way in which we do something. You'll often hear people described as polite. They have a polite manner. They have nice ways of doing things. Word number 4, recommend, to give someone some advice about something, tell them something good. People recommend books, TV shows, hobbies, activities, recommendations on anything. Last word, avoid, to stay away. At the moment, we have to avoid each other to avoid the virus spreading. Sorry to make so many virus references. I promise that will be the last. Okay, so again, please read through this passage, pause the video now. When you restart, I'll read it through so that you can check pronunciation. Okay. People feel faint when they do not have an adequate blood supply to their head. When people feel faint, they should sit down and put their heads between their knees. This will get blood circulating to the head quickly. If possible, a person should lie down so that his or her head is lower than the rest of the body. Lying down in this manner is also recommended if a person has already fainted. Once the person feels better, he or she should talk to a doctor. It is important to find out why the person felt faint or fainted. This will help the person to avoid this unpleasant experience in the future. Okay, again, pause and rewind if you would like to practice any of that pronunciation or hear how I said anything. And the questions for skill 8, number 2, sorry. Please pause the video again, give your answers, write them down in your notebook, and when you restart the video, I will give you the answers. Question number 1, what is the best way to recover from feeling faint? Correct answer, A, by sitting down with your head between your knees. Question 2, The word unpleasant in the passage is closest in meaning to what? Is it A, not tiring, B, not enjoyable, C, not expensive, or D, not polite? It is B, not enjoyable. Question 3. According to the passage, a person feels faint because A, his or her blood is not healthy. B, one has poor blood circulation in one's lower body. C, something is wrong with a person's knees. D, blood is not circulating properly to the head. Okay, that information is there in the very first sentence. It's D, blood is not circulating properly to the head. Now, underneath this, for question 4, you are asked to fill in the blanks for the sequence map. Section 2 or box 2, sit with head lower or lie down. And last stage, talk to a doctor. Okay, so feeling faint is stage 1. Stage 2, sit with your head lower or lie down. And stage 3, talk to a doctor. All right, give yourself a score, add that with the last question, and we shall move on. Number 3. All right, Weili Zhang. If you don't know who Weili Zhang is, or Zhang Weili, Google her. She's awesome, taking the UFC by storm at the moment. So our third text is on the passage, is on the subject of boxing. 5 words. Formal. We hear this word a lot when we talk about language. Okay, conventional or official. Word number 2, bear. Spelt slightly differently to bear the animal, however, not pronounced any differently. For example, a bear would be a naked bear, or a bear not wearing clothes, as opposed to a bear which does wear clothes, which you don't find very often, maybe in cartoons. Word number 3, knuckle. Okay, on the hands, we can see right along here, these are our knuckles. There we go, knuckles. Number 4, an opponent, a person or team being fought against. Okay. Who did Vietnam play in the cup? Was it Malaysia they played in the football? Or was it Iran? Iran, maybe. They were the opponent, the team that Vietnam were playing. Word number 5, compel. To cause, to act, to force an action or behavior. Okay. Probably the word force there is the most important. To force someone to do something, to compel someone to do something. So again, read through that text, please, on your own. Pause the video while you do so, underline or highlight any words you don't know how to pronounce, and I will read it when you restart the video. Thank you. Okay, boxing. In the sport of boxing, or pugilism, its formal name, has a long history. It was a popular sport among the Greeks and then the Romans. However, most of what is known about boxing begins in England in the early 1700s. Boxers at that time did not wear boxing gloves. A fighter's bare knuckles could really hurt his opponent. A boxing match lasted until one boxer was knocked out. This changed in 1867 when new rules were adopted. The match was divided into rounds. Each round lasted 3 minutes. The boxers were compelled to wear protective gloves on their hands, and the 10-second count for a knockout came into force. Modern boxing still follows these 1867 rules. Okay, skipping forward to the questions. So please uncover these if you're doing in your book. Question 1. According to the passage, what did early boxers not wear? The correct answer was C, boxing gloves. It was bare knuckle. They did it with naked hands. Question number 2. The word adopted in the passage is closest in meaning to A, denied, B, covered, C, accepted, or D, taken. Correct answer there, C, accepted. Question 3. Based on the information in the passage, which of the following would occur in early boxing matches? Was it A, a boxing match ended only when one boxer was knocked out? Was it B, knuckles were protected? C, matches were divided into rounds? Or D, new rules were adopted? And that is A, a boxing match ended only when one boxer was knocked out. Underneath that, question 4, you are asked to list the 3 specific rules of boxing that changed in 1867. You should be able to see this down in around about line 7 and 8. The 3 things were they added rounds, 3-minute periods with a little break in between. Title professional bouts, there's up to 12 of these. They also had to start wearing gloves to protect their hands. And the last new rule was that there would be a 10-second count after a boxer's been knocked down. So once they've hit the floor, they have 10 seconds to get back onto their feet. Okay, again, give yourself a tick for any questions you got right there. Your score so far should be at 12. Hopefully, we've got them all correct. Number 4, does anybody recognize that computer? Okay, our vocab for number 4. Device, a machine or tool designed for a particular purpose. My phone is a device. The computer is a device. The phone's purpose is to make phone calls, apparently, although I can't remember the last time I made one. The computer, all sorts of information these days. In fact, that's somewhat what this text is touching on, the purpose of a computer. Word number 2, manipulate, to control or operate. Word number 3, to analyze, to study, often by breaking something into smaller parts. We're often asking you in English to analyze text. But we thought we'd break it down into parts. We find out what the good things about something, what the bad things about something, and that allows us to form an opinion on it, which is analyzing. Word number 4, predict, to guess something before it happens. Lots of people use predictions when kind of betting or gambling. It's not such a thing in Vietnam, but in the UK we have sort of famous horse races, or whenever there's a sporting event, people predict the outcome, what they think will happen, and then put money on that. That would be a prediction. Word number 5, insight, a special type of understanding or knowledge. Okay, somebody with a lot of knowledge in one particular thing might be able to give you some important insight. Okay, reading time. Please pause the video again. Same process as before. Highlight any words you don't understand, and we'll get back to it in a minute. Okay, the historical definition of a computer is a device that can help in computation. Computation includes counting, calculating, adding, subtracting, etc. The modern definition of a computer is a little different. Today's computers store, manipulate, and analyze many kinds of information. Historically, the first computers are very interesting. The first computer may actually have been located in Great Britain at Stonehenge. It's a man-made circle of large stones. People used it to measure the weather and predict the change of seasons. Another ancient computer is the abacus. The early Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians used this device to count and calculate. Although they are no longer used, these early computers provide fascinating insight into early computers and computing. Stonehenge there. only about an hour away from where I grew up. Okay, questions? Pause the video, work through the answers. In a moment, I will give you the answers. Okay, so question 1. According to the passage, which is true of Stonehenge? Is it A, that it is man-made, B, that it changed seasons, C, that it was built by the Greeks and Romans, or D, that it predicted the weather? I did have to look twice at this one when I read it. It confused me for a second until I noticed the subtle changes in wording. So the correct answer was A, that it was man-made. There may have been a little bit of confusion with the B and D, where it says it changed the seasons and predicted the weather, but in fact it measured the weather, didn't predict it. It measured the weather and predicted the change of seasons. Okay, just subtle nuances there that may be noticed. Question 2. The word located in the passage is closest in meaning to what? A, area, B, found after searching, C, situated, or D, near. The correct answer there is situated. Question number 3. According to the passage, what is the historical definition of a computer? The A, an abacus, B, Stonehenge, C, a device that can help in computation, or D, a device that analyzes many kinds of information. And the correct answer there would have been C, the historical definition was a device that can help in computation. Now for question 4, each of these seems to be getting slightly longer. You're asked to write in your own words what is the difference between the historical and modern definitions of computers. I would put something along the lines of the main difference between historical and modern definitions of computers stems from computation. This was historically related to mathematics, but nowadays covers a vast array of data and analysis. Something like that would be fine. Okay, moving on. Last one, nearly there. Climate. Topic is climate. So, vocabulary. Climate is the average weather conditions in a region over a particular period of time. If we were to use it in a sentence, we could say, for example, Vietnam has a much hotter climate than the UK. That would be a very, very simple use of the word. Second, static, fixed, not moving or changing. Okay, something that stays completely still is static, or something that does not have the ability to move. If it's inanimate, it is static. Word number 3, flooding. Sure, we're all familiar with this. It can get quite bad here during rainy season. The condition when water from a river, lake, or ocean spills onto land. Or in fact, it can actually come up from the ground. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the island Tuvalu or Tuvalu. Very interesting to read about. A different kind of flooding there as a result of climate change. There's now about a foot of water across the entire island. Everywhere you walk, you're in water. Really, really interesting. Research it. Word number 4, natural resource, something not man-made that people can use for living. Wood would be considered a natural resource. Lastly, environment. The surrounding conditions, such as trees, sky, and water. Okay, a desert has a very desolate environment. There is nothing there. Whereas a jungle has a very different environment with lots of trees, plants, greenery, shrubbery, water. Very, very different. All right, anyway, our last reading. Please pause the video one more time. Read this, highlight any words that you don't understand. When you restart the video, I will read it through for you. Off you go. Okay, for the most part, we typically assume that an area's climate is static or unchanging. That does not mean, however, that powerful weather events do not occasionally occur. Events such as storms, floods, and dry periods may regularly occur. These may be large events that affect the environment and possibly destroy natural resources in an area. In spite of such events, the climate does not change. After storms or floods, weather conditions return to normal. In fact, by studying weather events over a long period of time, certain events are seen to occur regularly. Take, for example, seasonal storms and 100-year floods. Okay, questions for number 5. Pause the video again, please. Answer these on your own, and when you restart, I will give you the answer. Okay, question 1. According to the passage, which of the following is true of climate? The A, it's rarely static. The B, sometimes weather events can change it. Is it C, it actually does not change? Or D, typically changes in it happen quickly? The correct answer there, C, it actually does not change. Just wanted to clarify with this one as well that it's talking in relation to an extreme weather event. The rest of the climate does not change. This is not saying that climate change does not happen. That's all reworded. Okay. Question 2. The word period in the passage is closest in meaning to length of time, period of time. Question number 3. According to the passage, how do storms and floods affect climate? A, they are responsible for weather. B, they don't affect climate. C, they make seasons. Or D, they occur over long periods. And the correct answer is B, they don't affect climate. Section 4, a slightly shorter one this time. Fill in the blanks. Weather events, 3 examples. I just used 3 from the text. You could have used any, however. Storms, floods, dry periods. What they affect, the environment and natural resources, and what they do not affect, the whole purpose of the text, is climate. Okay, so count up your score. Hopefully, you should be at 20 points or very, very close. If you are at 20 points or very, very close, I'm going to assume that means that you have successfully understood what is required in TOEFL reading exams. Understood the vocabulary related to the questions, and recognized, extracted, and used the significant details from a variety of texts. If you feel like you've not understood anything, please go back through the video and have another go, or have a look at the passages of text in your exercise books. Okay. Now, writing. Your writing task is going to be sent to you a couple of days after this video. However, I'm going to give you a little bit of help before that gets sent to you, and you can come back and consult this video when you decide to move on to it, or when you are given the task efficiently. Okay. So the topic: a friend of yours has received some money and plans to use all of it, either to go on vacation or to buy a car. Your friend has asked you for advice. Compare your friend's 2 choices and explain which one you think your friend should choose. Use specific reasons and details to support your choice. So in this comparison, break down the 2 things. You've got vacation and buying a car. What are the positives of vacation? What are the negatives of vacation? Equally, what are the positives of buying a car? What are the negatives of buying a car? I would suggest maybe doing a couple of brainstorms today to get some of the juices flowing, to get some creative ideas in there. And then when you go to write this down later in the week on Saturday, you can start thinking about your structure. When you're writing this, you should have an introduction, your section about pros and cons of vacation, section pros and cons on buying a car, and then finally a conclusion. What would your particular advice be, having thought about the pros and cons of each answer, be to your friends? Okay. Should be a fairly easy one, I think. You've done, should have done quite a lot of tasks similar to this over the years. Anyway, that is where we are going to leave it today. Thank you very much for your attention again. I hope you were successful in today's lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it.